I want to talk to you for a few minutes about lab number 17, the electromagnet lab. It's the next one that we have coming up, and we do still want to go ahead with it. It's just that we do obviously have to modify it a bit. For one thing, normally the lab is done in groups of two. You're a team that works as a pair on building your electromagnet. Because of the situation we're in, it's only going to be a solo lab now. So please keep that in mind. Everybody has to build their own electromagnet. But that's the second thing I should mention, is that normally this is a mandatory lab. We are not making it mandatory. If you choose to do this one, great. If you don't, you just skip on over to one of the other labs and everything's fine. Third thing is, most often we ask students to run out and buy a bunch of stuff, to be creative and build their electromagnet. Please do not go out to buy anything for your electromagnet. If you do choose to do this electromagnet, it needs to be with things that you find just around your home. And finally, usually this lab is based a lot on testing the strength of your electromagnet. We're not going to be able to do that exactly this time. There's going to be a very simple test that you do that gets you all the marks for strength, and then we move on to marking it the rest of the way, kind of the normal way. So let me give you the guidelines then. The purpose of the lab is still to build a working electromagnet. And this isn't as crazy as it sounds, because if you look at the equipment list, it's actually a relatively simple thing to do, as long as you have a few things sitting around your home. One thing you will need is a ferromagnetic core. Basically, something like a big metal bolt or even a big nail potentially could work for this. Now, if you're concerned whether or not your core is ferromagnetic or not, there's a really simple test you can do. Just take a regular fridge magnet and try to stick it to the side of it. If it sticks, it's ferromagnetic. If it doesn't, find something else. Then you're going to have some wire. And in our equipment list, we say no greater than 15 meters. Really, don't even go close to that. Probably about a meter or two of wire is going to be more than enough for what you need. So you would take the core and you would wrap the wire around it, leaving two ends hanging off. That's where the next thing comes in on the equipment list, self-contained power source. And I say, for example, like a 9-volt battery. I cannot emphasize enough that this has to be a self-contained power source. I talk about this more in my cautionary notes down below in the discussion of how you're going to go about building your electromagnet, but it has to be a safe, self-contained battery. At no point building it, testing it, doing something to show it off to family, whatever, at no point can you ever take this electromagnet and plug any of it into a wall outlet. If you do, you are completely causing a short circuit and you could potentially cause a fire. So simply, it does not get plugged in. The batteries, we have to be a little bit careful with that also. Quite often students that do this one at school, they use what are sometimes called lantern batteries. They're the really big brick looking ones. Please don't go out and buy one of those. There's nothing terribly special about them other than they're kind of big, but really that's it. If you have even some AA batteries or maybe C or D batteries, they're the slightly bigger round ones, those can work just fine for what you're going to be able to need to do with this electromagnet, since strength isn't going to be as big a deal. Please do not use anything like an old car battery or a motorcycle battery or a marine motor battery, nothing from a vehicle type thing, because those batteries are lead acid. They give off a considerable amount of hydrogen when they're being used, and a little spark can actually cause that to catch and explode, so we don't want that. Also, don't start grabbing like old cell phone batteries. Lithium-ion batteries also have a tendency to explode really easily, so we don't want anything like that. Just basic, simple batteries. That's our best bet. Okay? Now, I do say optionally you can use a switch if you wish, and that's totally fine. If you have some around the house that were left over as spares from, maybe redoing some of the switches in your wall or something like that, those switches will work. If it's a regular light switch, they're sometimes called single pole light switches. Totally fine if you want to use one, but it's not an absolute requirement, okay? Just something to consider that you might want to put into it as a way to turn off and on without having to always connect and reconnect a battery. Okay, so consider that. Now in the procedure itself, I say, try to be a little bit kind of inventive about this. Don't just build a basic electromagnet. Bring some creativity to it. Try to dress it up a little bit. Again, only using things that you have available in your own home. But also try to make sure that you're making it a quality build for the electromagnet itself, because part of your mark does come from the construction of just the basic electromagnet itself. So when you get through the procedure, you'll see that I have all these points that I make. I've already said, be very careful about using safe batteries only. At no point that you'll be plugging this into a wall outlet, ever. And I always say within reason, I should be able to touch it. Well, so should you. Sometimes electromagnets get a little bit warm, just because of the current going through them. And that also does apply to the battery. So just make sure that you don't just leave the battery plugged or connected together and walk away from it. You can actually make batteries rupture and explode by doing that, just because they also will overheat. So we don't want that to happen. And I also point out not to try any exotic wiring setups, because if you do that, it's probably not going to work. And basically, you just want to do something that, if you think back to junior high science, it'll look like a series circuit. You'll have one terminal of the battery, wire comes off, loops around, and comes over to the other terminal. Okay, that's basically what you need for an electromagnet to work. Now, if you scroll on to the next page, where it says strength of the electromagnet, we're not testing it based on picking up the big metal rod at school, because you don't have one at home. So instead, if you've got a few little basic paper clips, and you can pick those up in a video that you make for me, I'm going to say your electromagnet works. Yay! And that'll get you the 10 marks. Okay, we're going to make it very simple for getting the strength marks on this one. But you still do have to do some stuff that is creative and good use of materials. And that does mean that at the very least, I'm going to need you to send some pictures to me of your electromagnet. It'd be better if you could show me some video. Especially, also, don't forget, if it's kind of like enclosed, that you open it up and show me what's inside also. Okay, I do need to see that. What I'm even hoping is that maybe we can book some time as a class on Microsoft Teams, and you can show off the electromagnets to each other a little bit. I think that would be a great opportunity to kind of see each other for those of you that have a webcam or can get things up and running on your cell phone to show us some pictures of what's going on, or some video, everything. So I will need you to send me those pictures of everything for your electromagnet and video, hopefully. Once you're done that, and the electromagnet is due 1 week from when it's assigned, so very standard like for any lab, you will see that there is a thing here about doing a lab report also. It's a very modified lab report because the electromagnet is so different from other labs that we do. So I will be putting up the special template for that also for you to use, and I'm totally fine with that being handed in the day after the electromagnet itself is due, okay? Because I know you might want to take a little while just to get all the details written up on there. So I hope that covers everything for you. If at any point while you're building your electromagnet you're getting stuck on something, take some pictures and send them to me. If you just say it doesn't work, it doesn't really help me very much, and I'll try to make some suggestions for you to help you out. Okay, so good luck with that.